Marco Sturm is the new head coach of the Boston Bruins, and this isn't just a feel-good reunion. It's a smart, forward-looking hire.
You're Locked On Bruins, your daily podcast on the Boston Bruins. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, Bruins fans, and welcome back to the Locked On Boston Bruins podcast. I'm your host, Ian McLaren, and this is a daily show where we discuss all things Spoked B. Today is Thursday, June 5th. Thank you so much for making Locked On Bruins part of your day every single day. It's free and available on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. And almost 2 months after the Boston Bruins played their last game of the regular season, we finally have some clarity on who will be coaching the team next year. It's Marco Sturm, former Bruin, a recent head coach of the AHL's Ontario Reign, and also a previous assistant with the Los Angeles Kings and head coach of Team Germany. On today's episode, we're going to discuss why Sturm is the right hire, what general manager Don Sweeney and Sturm had to say about the news, and also take a look at what is next now that this long period of uncertainty is behind us. Before we get into all that, a quick reminder, you can find the podcast on social media at Locked NHL Bruins. And you can find me, my hockey thoughts and dad jokes at Ian C. McLaren. I'm a lifelong Boston Bruins fan, and I've been covering this team for various outlets and the NHL at large for about 20 years. Seen a lot of NHL coaching moves over the years, and this is not your typical reduce, reuse, recycle kind of coaching hire. This is not a nostalgia play. It's not a dip into the old boys club. It's a move rooted in coaching and player development, leadership, and a philosophy fit. The Bruins are entering a new chapter, and Sturm checks the boxes for what they need most. Yes, he is a former player. He played for this team from 2005 to around 2010 after being acquired from the San Jose Sharks in the infamous Joe Thornton trade. And he had a direct impact on a Bruins shift from those Joe Thornton years of hope that ended in this shocking trade. That was actually my first blog post on the Boston Bruins, into a time where they were able to shake off the loss that they suffered in 2010 to the Philadelphia Flyers and rebound with that win Stanley Cup in 2011. Now, Sturm, not a direct part of that, but he did have a real influence on that group, as exemplified by a statement made this morning by post-Bergeron. And this is via Joe McDonald on X at Joey Mac Hockey, who said, Bergeron on Sturm, quote, "I think it's great. I'm very happy for him. He was an incredible teammate, and I'm not surprised he pursued coaching. He has a passion for the game, and I know he's going to do an amazing job. There are a lot of guys who impacted my career in many ways, and Marco is one of them. He's a special person with a lot of character. He cares for the game and cares for his teammates. His energy is contagious, and this is well-deserved. I wish him all the best, and I know he's going to do great. I want the team to be successful and for him to do well," end quote. And that is from Patrice Bergeron, one of the great Bruins of all time. So for him to say that Marco Sturm had a direct impact on his career, his trajectory, on him becoming the player that he was, that's huge. And that's all you can hope for when it comes to elevating young players like Matt Patra, Mason Lohrei, Fabian Lysell, John Beecher if he sticks around, Marat Husnudinov, Jacob Lauko, Casey Middlestat, whoever's drafted with the 7th overall pick. Elevating young players is something Sturm has done with the German national team, with the Ontario Reign. He brings a coaching background that's rooted in patience, systems, and also accountability. With the German national team, he built it from the ground up and led them to a silver medal in 2018, their first podium finish since 1976. Now we're looking at the 2026 Winter Olympics. Of course, it wasn't a best on best in 2018, but still, to take Germany without Leon Draisaitl to a podium at the Winter Olympics, still very significant. Ontario Reign, 3 straight playoff appearances, built strong team identity, clear player development with the likes of Quentin Byfield, Brant Clark, Alex Turcotte, who became a regular on the Kings this past season. Prior to that, he was a Kings assistant, helped bring stability to a team during a similar kind of retooling, rebuilding phase that led to their return to the playoffs after several successful years where they won a couple cups. The Bruins, of course, are known for their structure. They've lacked offense and perhaps some cohesion in the post-Bergeron era. Sturm's teams play with discipline and pace. He has shown an ability to modernize offense without turning games into track meets. And Don Sweeney has said he wants this team to evolve offensively, but they also don't want to lose that defensive identity as well. So the Bruins are trying to evolve here without blowing things up, and Sturm can help them do that. He can help them regain some confidence offensively as well as maintain that defensive presence. And he was known for that, right? He was known for scoring big goals. 2010, Fenway Park. He was known for playing hard, playing responsibly, and his coaching style has displayed that. His international background, multilingual fluency, make him a natural communicator. He's had to break down barriers along the way. His coaching approach is rooted in team and trust building, not barking orders from the bench. He connects with players on a human level, vital for a team that's blending young talent with a veteran core. Sturm played 302 games for the Bruins. Again, scored one of the franchise's most iconic regular season goals at the Winter Classic. He understands the media, the market, the fans. That all helps. But it's not why he was hired. Again, this isn't the old boys club in action. It's not a Don Sweeney bringing back a safe former Bruin who can be another scapegoat if things fail. That would have been hiring Jay Leach. This is a coach with a modern resume, forward-facing leadership style. And again, he does not have NHL head coaching experience, which you may think is a detriment. Maybe they should have gone with Jay Woodcroft. You could have gone with Mitch Love. Or maybe they should have pursued Mike Sullivan a bit heavier, or waited to see if Pete DeBoer is fired by the Dallas Stars. They had an extensive interview process, and they went with the guy that I've been talking. I tweeted about Sturm being a dream hire, or Mark Savard being a dream hire, back in mid-April, and it's become increasingly clear that he was a guy that they were looking at, and I think it's a great hire. And we're gonna discuss what Don Sweeney and Marco Sturm had to say about the hire here as the podcast continues. Ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in. Your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app, it's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place, so you stop just managing your money and start building wealth. When I started using Monarch, I realized just how much we were spending on streaming services. Now we budget smarter and save more. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNHL for half off your first year. Marco Sturm is your new head coach, and Don Sweeney had this to say about the hire. Quote, our goal was to identify a coach who could uphold our strong defensive foundation while helping us evolve offensively. End quote. This confirms what we've seen on the ice. Defense first, still the identity of this club, but there's acknowledgement that the offense needs to grow. There's acknowledgement that younger players need to be incorporated into the lineup. There's an acknowledgement that the power play was pretty brutal last year. Although I thought I saw the Ontario Reigns power play was like 24th, personnel based, of course. But the Bruins aren't fully moving away from defense first. They're not going to play like the Phoenix Suns under Steve Nash. They're going to maintain that defensive responsibility, but also try to modernize their systems without compromising what made Boston successful in the past. You still have to play to who you have in the lineup. You signed Nikita Zadorov, Elias Lindholm last summer, and those guys are more built for grinding games, for that defensive responsibility. So you have to try to milk what you can from guys like Patra, Lysell, Middlestat, Morgan Geekie, even once he resigns, in order to help keep that offense rolling and take a next step, especially when it comes to the power play. Sweeney also said, quote, we were also looking for a communicator and a leader, someone who connects with players, develops young talent, and earns the respect of the room, end quote. Keyword there is develops. This is the first head coach hire in years where youth development is clearly a top priority. You look at Claude Julien being let go in favor of Bruce Cassidy. Bruce Cassidy being let go in favor of Jim Montgomery. Those were all hires intended to maintain or get the most out of that core group of players that had been so successful since around when Sturm left the Bruins up until 2023 or last year when they beat the Toronto Maple Leafs in the first round of the Stanley Cup playoffs. They're retooling. They're adding some youth. They're adding picks, prospects, guys that are going to have to be developed. And Sturm has a clear track record of that with the Los Angeles Kings and their organization. Past disconnects with younger players or locker room dynamics may have played into this shift. We know in the past there were issues with Bruce Cassidy and some players, and a lot of people still keep saying, well, they should have kept Cassidy. He could have guided them to a Stanley Cup in 2023. Well, chances are they wouldn't have had the same roster. David Krejci doesn't come back, if Jake DeBrusk is traded, if Trent Frederick doesn't pan out, etc., etc. All kinds of things could have happened. Sturm is going to help build a culture that lasts, not just patching holes with short-term tactics. The Bruins have a new captain to announce. They have a new core to build around in David Pastrnak, Charlie McAvoy, Jeremy Swayman, Hampus Lindholm, Morgan Geekie maybe if he signs long-term. And it's up to Sturm to kind of create that next wave of success as head coach of this team. Sweeney added, Marco impressed at every step with his preparation, clarity, and passion. The Bruins did not rush this hire. Like, we've been waiting weeks for this to happen. And Sweeney implied Sturm won the job, not just with his vision, but with detailed preparation. I don't know if that involved spreadsheets, slideshow, whatever, video, but this suggests confidence in his ability to lead right now, not just as a developmental placeholder. They're not hoping he comes in, leads them through the retool, and then somebody comes in and takes them to the next level. They're hoping he's the guy. He signed a 3-year contract, I believe, that will take him, through Don Sweeney's tenure. But he could very much outlast Don Sweeney. If he impresses, gets the most out of this roster, while Sweeney doesn't do his finest work this summer, Sturm is a guy who could and should remain with the organization, as Sweeney has, as other guys have. Joe Sacco was here for years. Jay Leach has been there and back again. And Sturm said Boston has always held a special place in his heart. He knows how much this team means to the city and to the fans. He's felt that passion as a player. Again, go back to the Winter Classic 2010. Can't wait to be behind the bench and feel it again. He's not hiding the personal meaning behind this hire, but it's not just a homecoming. He's tying his identity to the team's purpose, and that shows early signs of buy-in and alignment. Sturm added he's incredibly honored to be named head coach of the Boston Bruins. He's the 30th head coach in team history. He's excited to get to work and do everything he can to help this team succeed. He knows this job comes with pressure. He was around when they caved in 2010. He was around when they lost to Carolina in 2009. These bumps along the way to that peak in 2011, he was here for that. He knows that there's pressure on Don Sweeney, Cam Neely, and that he's not being brought in just as, a token hire, as a former Bruin, as a guy who is just kind of a face behind all that. He knows, first and foremost, that this is his chance to make an impression as a full-time NHL head coach, which he has not been given the opportunity to do so as of yet. He was an assistant with the Kings, head coach in the AHL. If the Bruins wanted to be safe, they might have just gone with Jay Leach, who's an internal option, or gone with Jay Woodcroft, who does have NHL head coaching experience. They went with a guy who's a perfect mix of nostalgia and familiarity with this club, but also who's not so deeply entrenched as a Zdeno Chara or a Patrice Bergeron, who's been outside of the organization for 12, 15 years, who can come in with fresh eyes, who has a proven track record of helping develop talent and implementing defensive, offensive systems, and who the players respect. Like, he's a guy that all of these players saw play, whether it would be growing up or in young adulthood, and saw the way he played, see the way he comports himself on and off the ice. He's a guy who commands respect and accountability, but also I don't think we're going to see any screaming matches on the bench like we saw with Jim Montgomery and Brad Marchand this past season. So I'm a big fan of this hire. Everybody knows, everydayers will remember I was talking about Misha Donskov as perhaps my top choice, but Marco Sturm was right there. I would have been happy with Mitch Love as well. Jay Woodcroft, maybe. Jay Leach, not as much, just because of that familiarity with the organization. Doesn't represent much of a change. Sturm brings a good balance of familiarity and evolution, and I'm excited to see what he's able to accomplish here as head coach of the Boston Bruins. This is a big step for the Bruins this offseason. It's an important thing to cross off the to-do list, and it's just the beginning of their summer kind of overhaul. and we'll discuss what is directly next here as the podcast continues. All right, it's official. The Boston Bruins have a new head coach. Marco Sturm is going to jump behind the bench come training camp. And with a coach officially in place, the Bruins now head into one of the most pivotal off seasons in recent memory, with a top 10 pick, real cap flexibility, and a need to define their next era. The Bruins own the 7th overall pick in this year's draft. It's a rare opportunity to land a high-impact prospect. All signs are pointing to a center, be it Jake O'Brien or Brady Martin or Gord Willing, someone who falls like a Michael Misa or Anton Frondel. Sturm, unlikely to directly coach this young man for 1, 2, maybe 3 years. But under a development coach like Sturm, they may be more inclined to keep and nurture that talent than trade the pick or perhaps send them back to junior. Whether Boston drafts a future top 6 forward or moves the pick in a package deal, this will definitely help define how quickly they reload under Sturm. Either way, I think, again, he's got that track record of development. 7th overall pick, likely to go back, say, to the OHL or to college. Might be a bit of time until Sturm gets his hands directly on that situation. But the Bruins do have some free agency and trade leverage to work with, about $28 million in available cap space. They do have to perhaps chase a top-line winger, look for a middle 6 center, trade a veteran leader to help, or target a veteran leader to help usher in the post-Bergeron Marchand era. You could argue they already have that in Zadorov and Lindholm, Elias Lindholm, and Pavel Zacha, Casey Middlestat, Matt Poitras could work down the middle. How they use this money will tell us a lot about whether they're prioritizing a soft reset or a serious playoff push. There's going to be bigger roles for some younger Bruins. Matt Poitras. Could he center the second line, get some power play time? Could Mason Lohrei have a bigger breakout on the blue line, notably improving his plus-minus? Fabian Lysell, this may be his last chance to earn a real NHL look. Georgi Merkulov, Johnny Beecher, candidates for bottom 6 roles or to be gone. Sturm is known for accountability, but also for giving players some rope to learn and grow. We're embracing a new direction with Marco behind the bench, Don Sweeney said. This offseason is all about defining that direction. They need to get more offensively creative, smarter, maybe a bit tougher as well. A team that doesn't just cling to the past, but grows into something new. And with Sturm at the helm, we're likely to see a culture reset that blends work ethic with development. And that's what this team desperately needs at this moment. A culture reset, a new vision in terms of leadership. So in summary, the Bruins' decision to hire Marco Sturm as their next head coach goes far beyond sentiment or familiarity. His connection to the franchise is real, and Bruins social media, they're out there posting that Winter Classic experience in light of the hire. But this is a strategic, forward-looking move rooted in his proven ability to develop talent, lead with clarity, and maintain the structure Boston is known for. Sturm has succeeded at every level, internationally with Germany, in the AHL with Ontario, and as an NHL assistant with the Kings, earning a reputation as a thoughtful communicator and player-focused leader. Sweeney made it clear that this hire was about evolving the team's offensive identity without losing its defensive core, and about building a culture that connects across generations. For his part, Sturm spoke with passion and purpose, recognizing the opportunity and weight of leading a team and a city he deeply respects. With the draft, free agency ahead, maybe some trades, this decision sets the tone for a new era of Bruins hockey, one that blends accountability, energy, and long-term vision. Now, on top of this, Don Sweeney and Marco Sturm will meet with the media on Tuesday, so we'll be sure to recap everything we learned from those two. On tomorrow's episode, we'll continue to discuss the fallout from the Sturm announcement and any other breaking news that comes with respect to the Boston Bruins. I don't know if you watched game 1 of the Stanley Cup final last night, but it was incredibly entertaining. And I was so thrilled to see Edmonton win. I'm not going to lie. And also hoping that the Oilers can finish it off. Do I want to see Brad Marchand win? Yes. Do I want to see the Panthers lose? Also, yes. So we'll see what happens there. Please do subscribe to Locked On Boston Bruins if you have not already on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube. Check out Locked On NHL Game Night, local analysis from our game night hosts every game, every night until a new Stanley Cup champion is crowned. It's all part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your favorite team every single day. Please do take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and we'll talk to you again here on the next episode of Locked On Boston Bruins.